Hey everyone, it's Ben. Hope everyone had a nice Halloween. What I wanted to do today is talk about my other favorite horror series of all time, next to Friday the 13th, which is Psycho. The Psycho films have been a part of my life since I was 10 years old, the first time I saw Psycho 2 on Showtime. Been a big fan ever since. The films have just been, they're just amazing films, and I think a lot of people write off the sequels and just look at the first one, but I think all four films are great in their own way. So what this video is going to be about is just my thoughts on each of the films, and I welcome anybody to post comments and tell me what they think about the series. Now, Psycho is the Godfather of the slasher films, in my opinion. A lot of people like to say that Black Christmas and Halloween were the ones that actually started the slasher boom, but you gotta tip your hat to Psycho. I mean, Psycho was so controversial for its time. It was released back in the 60s, early 1960 it came out. It had a lot of things that Hitchcock pushed the envelope on. One thing, it showed a lot more skin in a film than they had seen prior to that. It showed the first working toilet in a film, which is so strange to hear. It also, one thing that it did that had not previously been done in a film is that it killed the main protagonist off 40 minutes into the film. I mean, Marion Crane, played by the legendary Janet Leigh, is killed 40 minutes into the film in the amazing shower scene that it's just that scene is just so amazing to watch, and just the way that it was choreographed and cut together. I mean, just amazing. But killing off your main protagonist and then having the audience having to shift and sort of focus on the Anthony Perkins character of Norman Bates, and that's where they shift their empathy, not knowing that he would eventually end up being the killer in the film. I mean, what an achievement, especially back in the 60s when these kind of films didn't happen. And just great performances by all. Anthony Perkins is amazing as Norman Bates. Janet Leigh is amazing as Marion Crane. You got the great John Galvin as Sam Loomis. He's amazing in it. Vera Miles is great as as Marion's sister Lila. And then, of course, Martin Balsam as Arbogast is just awesome. I mean, just the scene between Norman and Arbogast in the motel parlor is just, I think, one of the best scenes in the film, because you see how the protagonist and the antagonist switch in that scene, where Norman has the upper hand and then Arbogast switches the tables on him and you see him get the upper hand. I mean, it's a great scene. Just so many great scenes in this film. The shower scene, like I said, the scene where Marion's being chased by the cop as she's trying to get to Sam with the money that she's stolen. And you also got the great scene at the end of the film, the confrontation between Lila and Norman dressed as mother in the basement when the mother's corpse is discovered. I mean, what an amazing scene. I still have my videotape that I got about probably 12 years ago, and then I also have the 50th anniversary edition on Blu-ray, and then I also have the Legacy series, Universal Legacy series that came out. Not too many films that I've kept my video cassettes on, but these will always remain in my library. But yeah, I mean, just can't say enough good things about the original Psycho. Just one of the best films ever made. Amazing cast, amazing story, amazing direction, amazing score by Bernard Herrmann. I mean, the music is just chilling. The fact that he used all strings is just, I mean, whew, man, does it tear at your guts when you hear some of these scenes play out, like when Arbogast gets murdered in the shower scene. I mean, just amazing stuff. So with that, I'm going to now shift to Psycho 2. So Psycho 2, like I had said at the beginning of the video, Psycho 2 was the first one I had seen in the series. I think the biggest draw for me as a kid watching this film for the first time, a very adult film for a 10-year-old, but what drew me to it was Anthony Perkins. I mean, in this film, Norman Bates is released 22 years after the original murders, and he goes back to his home in the Bates Motel, trying to just live a normal life. And he's not able to do that because something starts to happen at the motel where killings start to happen again, and he starts to see his mother appearing in the old bedroom window, and he's confused, like, is he doing this or who's doing this to him? And I think it's another mystery like the original Psycho, just in a different way. And I think one thing has to be said is that Tom Holland's script for this film is amazing. I mean, instead of trying to do an exact replica of the original Psycho, they did the smart thing and created a brand new story about a rehabilitated killer. And it was something that, you know, a sequel 22 years after the original was something unheard of at the time. You just didn't hear of stuff like that. And again, you have a great cast in this film. I mean, like I said, Anthony Perkins is just amazing in it. You have Meg Tilly, who plays Mary Loomis. And, of course, Vera Miles returned as Lila Loomis, having married Sam Loomis between Psycho and Psycho 2. And Mary being their daughter. Lila is very different in this one. Vera Miles plays her very evil, a woman out for vengeance after what Norman had done to her sister in the original film. And then you have Dennis Franz, you have Robert Loggia, you have just a great cast, and good direction by Richard Franklin. I thought that it's just one of those films that will always be my favorite. And I think there's so many great scenes in it, especially like the scene where Norman like sees the kitchen knife and he makes Mary a sandwich, and he's scared to have the knife in his hand, and then she casually finds it in the drawer and hands it to him to cut the sandwich in half, and he's just holding it, staring at it, and you see the light just hit the knife, and the music by Jerry Goldsmith is just amazing. I mean, there's nothing bad to say about Psycho 2, in my opinion. I've always loved the film. It's a scary film. I think it's just as scary as the original, just in a different way. It's got the amazing performances in it, and it's one film that I could watch over and over again. I've probably watched Psycho 2 probably 1,000 times, and it never gets old with me. And it's got a very haunting feel to it, where the original Psycho was a murder mystery. This one is almost, it's got that mystery aspect to it, but it's also a very sad film in many ways, because Norman is so trapped by what he had done and where it led him in life, that, you know, he's trapped by, you know, what his, you know, the being crazy and having committed these murders, but being a good person underneath all of it. And I think that's why a lot of people really empathized with him in this film, or at least that's why I did. And you know, it's a testament to Tony Perkins, just an amazing actor. And this is what made me a fan of this series and a fan of Anthony Perkins. And like I said, not enough good things to say about this film. Excellent, excellent, excellent film. And from here, we go on to Psycho 3. Okay, Psycho 3. Now, Psycho 3 came out in 1986 and was the first and only film of the Psycho films that I saw in the movie theater. I was really excited about this one because it was the first film in the series to be directed by Anthony Perkins. So I'm like, Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates is directing a Psycho film. How cool is that? Now, Psycho 3 is probably my least favorite of the Psycho films. Not to say that it's not a good film and that Anthony Perkins didn't do a good job. I just wasn't as big of a fan of the story that I was of the other two films. Charles Edward Pogue wrote a good script, but there's a sleaziness to Psycho 3 that I don't know, I just had a hard time with. But it has a great cast. I mean, you got Anthony Perkins returning as Norman Bates. You have Diana Scarwood as Maureen Coyle, who's this nun that's running away from an accident that happened while she was in the convent. And then you have the great Jeff Fahey as Dwayne Duke, who's the sleaziest of the bunch and just does a great job soaking up the sleaze factor in every scene that he's in. And you really just, I mean, you love to hate Dwayne Duke, but Jeff Fahey is just a great actor in this film. This one has a lot more violence in it. I mean, it's almost like it's almost like an art house film more so than a mainstream film. So I think that's why audiences weren't drawn to this one as much as they were for the Psycho 1 and 2. But Tony Perkins does an amazing job directing it. There's a lot of great shots in it. Shots of the house. There's like a blue tint to the house sometimes at night and during the raining shots where it's raining. And then the scene like where he stuffs a body into the ice chest and the sheriff is taking ice out of the chest, not knowing that there's a dead body in it. And I mean, there's some great little winks at Hitchcock in this film. And but like I said, I think my biggest problem with this film is the script. Yeah, so the script was really my only problem with the film. Not that it's a bad script, I just didn't draw me in as much as Psycho 2 or the original did. But all in all, still a great film. Very well directed. Anthony Perkins is amazing in it again, and had a lot of good twists in it. So yeah, definitely a great flick. And from here we go to Psycho 4.